In this lecture, we're going to go over functions as part 2 of our algorithm, programs and functions. So we want to create, execute, and modify functions. We want to understand how to execute functions with multiple input and output variables. We want to remember the anatomy of a proper function header and the program function call. And we want to understand the difference between local and global variables. So what are functions? Functions are a special type of program that is not designed to be used by itself, but as an element in a larger program. And they're really good for pieces of code that you use over and over and over again. You want to simplify and modularize programming by using a single word for a commonly used code segment. And functions are relatively small sets of instructions used to perform a very specific task, given some input to generate some sort of output. So this black box is our function. We put something in, we get something out. It appears as a black box in codes where variables go in and other variables come out, but the program can't see what is happening inside the function. MATLAB has hundreds of built-in functions that are available for use. For example, our length, size, min, max, square root, sine, pause. For more information on a particular function, again, you can use the help and doc functions. To look for a function, you can use the function look for. So user-defined functions are what we're really looking at, and they're functions created by us, the programmer, for use in other programs or functions. They are stored in an M file, just like a program, but you have a function header, which must include the first executable line in your program, and it allows variables to be passed in from another code and return the variables we compute. So this is what the function header in MATLAB looks like. You have the function and your output variables is equal to your function name and your input variables. This word function here is actually the word function. It's what tells MATLAB you are defining a function. This is the name that you want to call your program that will allow it to be called from other programs. Some important notes about functions. The file name of a function must be the same as the function name with .m on the end. So if you want to call a function my function, the file must be saved as my function. You do not want to use clear or CLC commands inside functions because these are going to erase all of your stored variables in your program where you are calling the function from. All variables set into the function have to be defined in the program. You can't send a variable into your function if you've not defined it yet, because they also have to have values. All variables in the output parameter list must be defined in the function. So if I want to get a variable q out of my function, it has to be defined inside of my function. The variable names in the program and the functions do not need to match, but the value is determined by the ordinal position. So just because I call a value ABC inside of my function does not mean I need to pass in variables ABC. They will be defined by the order in which I pass them in. So for example, this is my function call. I want variables x and y of my function, and I'm putting in A, B, and C. My function gives me outputs W and Z, and my file name EFG. These variables are related, so they both have the file name. That's how MATLAB knows where to go. The output W will be stored in the variable X. The output Z will be stored in the variable Y. The input A is actually input E, B is F, and C is G because they're determined by their order. So how do I call functions? Well, to call functions in a line of code, you're going to call your function by defining your output variables that you want, calling the function, and passing in the value required for your function. In this case, I am calling a function called convert_temp. I am passing in the temperature T, which is in degrees Celsius, and this function is going to convert it into Fahrenheit, Kelvin, and Rankine. So it takes that value of 142, it runs these lines of code, and it returns the values TF, TK, and TR for me to be able to save. The function call and the function header have the same function name, so I'm calling the function convert_temp. The word function only appears at the start of the function header. It is not in the function call. It's in the function header because we are telling MATLAB we are defining a function. The variables in the brackets are sent from the program, from the function to the program. So I am sending the values of f, k, and r from my function to my program. And the variables in parentheses are sent from the program to the function. So I'm sending my value of temperature into my function for my function to operate on. The names of the variables, again, do not need to be the same. They are determined by their order. So by the order they are defined in your function header. Again, if we want to publish to PDF, you need to be careful because you can't evaluate a function before you publish it, so you must make sure the evaluate is set to false. All right, we want a quick example. We want to write a function header for the following. We want the input variables to be mass and time. We want the output variables to be d, h, and power. We want the file name to be called reviewf. So our function header is going to start with the word function. We're going to put our output, then our file name, and then our input. So our line of code is function. Our outputs are d, h, power, and our file name was reviewf, and our inputs were mass and time. So how do we convert some code to a function? So this is our original code that we had created for a problem to convert temperatures from Celsius to Kelvin and Rankine from Fahrenheit. The questions you want to ask yourself is, what do you want to achieve? I want to create a function that will calculate a temperature value in different unit systems. What code do I need to modify? So I want to identify the lines of code that I need to change. I want to copy and comment, do not delete. You just want to make sure you have your original code in case anything goes wrong. What information do I need from the program? Well, from the program, I need a variable t, so that would be my input. What information do I need to send to the program? Well, I need to send my output of Tc, Tk, and Tr, my converted temperature, so those go in my output. What should I name my function? Well, I'm going to name this function convert_t, since that's what I'm doing. I'm converting temperatures. And where should I call the function in the program? Well, I'm going to put it back right after the lines of codes that I commented out, because it still has to occur in the same relative place, because if it occurs afterwards, it might not have the variables needed in later lines of code. And then lastly, ask yourself, well, am I happy? Does it work? Is it what I need it to do? And if you're happy, you can go ahead and delete the lines of code in your program that you had copied out and create into your function. So lastly, we're going to look at debugging some MATLAB code. You can utilize a debugger tool in MATLAB to eliminate some errors. You can examine the variable values during the execution of a program or a function. If the output of a program is different from what you're expecting, you need to debug your code. This is basically looking for places you could have made a mistake. You can use MATLAB's debugger. You want to establish breakpoints that allow you to check the agreement in the program at various steps. A breakpoint stops the program at your specified point, and then it allows you to find a specific location where your program is misbehaving. There's two main types of breakpoints. You have standard set by location and conditional triggered at specified locations by conditions. Standard breakpoints are shown as little red dots next to the line of code where the program will pause. You just click on the lines and you can put in some breakpoints. You can run a program until a breakpoint, then you can step through the program one line at a time. A green arrow points to the program line where the execution is paused. You can step in and out of functions that are in your program, and you can resume running the whole program. So it's a step-by-step process of figuring out where your code is misbehaving. When a program is paused at a breakpoint, or when you're stepping through a program, you can hover over a variable to see the result in that line of code. So that's really it for debugging. It's a built-in tool that allows you to see where errors might be occurring. So next we're going to go over input and output in MATLAB and how it interacts with Excel, which will then ultimately lead us to introducing Excel.